I'm going to have them both up on my screen. We'll pop back and forth between the two of them. I'm going to use the Excel spreadsheet that we designed last year. It kind of has continuing information on it, including our transportation projectives, mill levy trends, type of stuff. So, and if I can go through this here. If you take a look at the very first page, the one that says 25 has got the red logo. The other one is the new superintendent's logo, so that's a 26 budget. That'll be the one we're going over today. First one you'll see I highlighted on the very first page, taxable valuation. Last year, 5.3 million. This year, down to 4.8 million. Now, I'm not sure how legislation did that because when I received my taxable valuation personally, it did not show that.
No.
So, and I'm sure that it's the same thing for everybody else, right? However, when I received my tax bill, and actually maybe you can speak to this as well, did it go down?
We had questions that are fire.
Yeah.
The taxable value in the rural district that went down. Speculation was some may have gotten taken out of the.
I believe it has to do with the funding mechanism now and how they're, so even though your valuation went up, they're not taxing it the same way that they have in the past. And that had to do with legislation. I can't remember which House bill. But you may have seen an increase in valuation. I also saw a decrease in my taxes. And I'll kind of show you how that works for us in this way here. What you're going to notice, though, is that our mills, like in the past, when we've seen our mills continually go down, this year they're going to kind of hold the same because our taxable valuations changed. So we're kind of, the last 3 budget hearings I've done, we've kind of been trying to hit a moving target with as far as mills and taxable valuations and stuff. This year, though, there was a big time positive that happened in legislation. What's the name of the group? MQEC worked really hard with your state legislators and really the governor's office and nailed down some funding mechanisms that were advantageous to your local taxpayer. So you'll kind of see that. If you will go to that next page, the very first item in fiscal year 25 says our adopted budget last year was $3.749 million roughly. This year it's at $4,006,000. On the screen, you'll see kind of the difference from where we were at in the very first line last year to budgetarily this year. That's an increase of $256,000. The reason you see that increase is a combination of a 3% inflation increase legislatively, the STARS Act, which was House Bill 252, and also House Bill 156, which was the equalization of the guaranteed tax base. So those 3 combined to create a big difference in what we'll be approving for our general budget this year. Last year, if you remember, it increased about $10,000. That was strictly on A and B and inflationary increase. So legislatively, we saw a big increase. If you go down to the bottom set up here, the bottom set of cells, the general budget tax property tax requirement, that'll be the last line in that first budget report line, the last highlighted item. Last year, $195,000 tax requirement. This year, $187,000 tax requirement. If you remember last year, that amount increased and it was out of your control. The state had equalization numbers that figured out what that was, and the county taxpayers were going to pay that no matter what. This year, because of House Bill 156, that number went down roughly $8,000. Now, the combination of the two is pretty staggering for what we've been looking at over the last few years budgetarily. You had a $256,000 increase, and you have an $8,000 decrease to what the taxpayers locally are going to pay. So they really refigured what their funding mechanisms are going to be going forward, and hopefully we'll kind of see this play out positively over the next couple of years. So you'll be able to approve a $256,000 increase and have decrease in taxpayers' dollars this year. So congratulations. Right. Transportation. I've used a 5-year schedule to build that. in March prelim, we used the number $647,000. That was based on our 5-year budget prep that we had done when we negotiated. I've also kind of kept track on this separate item or the separate spreadsheet over here and how the year ends and where we're at. What I projected at about $647,000 next year, I believe with unreserved fund balances and projected expenditures, we could get away with at about $630,000. I projected unreserved fund balance right around 50. It ended up at about 45. So we're kind of towing the line right there as far as the swing's not too big. We get out of our big increase this year, right? So next year will be CPI plus for the next 2 years of negotiations. So you guys were almost home on what the big part of the transportation contract was. So I believe at the number 630 with monitoring, we'll be able to kind of like gauge next year how close we are and what that final number will be for those next 2 years. So that's my suggestion.
So 7 and 8, you have it as.
Yeah, 647, 647, and those numbers were much higher when I first had done the assessment back when we were negotiating.
So only like 100,000 total for that 5 years.
Yes.
Which was less than we.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and you sat on that.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion. If you see over in the far right, you'd have an increase of about $30,000 to the budget this year, but it is about $17,000 less than what we had prelimed in March. Tuition. So finally, House Bill is it even in here? I don't even have it in on this little note for myself. It's House Bill 203, right? House Bill 203 open enrollment that happened like 3 years ago. We're finally going to have to ask for that money. So in the past, we've ran tuition for $101,000. We projected 101. I didn't make up a number because I knew the invoices would be coming out. They came out in June. That number was $16,278, what our out-of-district tuition cost us. So using the tuition calculator that OPI provides, we used our 5 highest need kids one-on-one basis, projected those costs to be around $169,000. The OPI calculator says that we can levy for those students $126,000. So we are asking for 101. We are also only asking, we've only used our 5 highest need kids. We could also look at that and justify even more down the road, but I've been kind of tasked in the past is to keep everything in line with what the taxpayers, what's coming out of pockets, right? So 101 is what we could continue to ask for using our SPED kids, but we do need to add $16,278 for, there's your tuition numbers right there. Broken down by school, that's what each invoice came out to be. You got tuition out, $16,278. Tuition in, we'll get back another $12,851, but it won't go to tuition, it'll go to the general fund. So in the crazy way that they plan that, you pay it out of one, you receive it back into another.
Just something different that we could use it for something.
Yes. But the difference, I know it's been a question that's been asked a lot. The difference was roughly $3,500 between tuition out and tuition in. We're about $3,500 in the red. So not as big of a swing as, some schools anticipate.
But looking at this year's numbers, it may swing
It may swing the other way.
And I had talked to them, so there will be a newspaper article coming out. Just give you a heads up. I did light that initiative up, just like we did 2 years ago. That's a mobility tax on taxpayers. If the goal of the legislators and the last legislative session was to lower property taxes, that alone, single-handedly, as you could see, cost our taxpayers 16 grand. It costs the other taxpayers from other surrounding communities 14 grand or 13 grand. Total, it's 30 grand with a difference of 3 grand. So it's trading money that all the taxpayers are paying across the state of Montana. We're all paying for it, and it's all just trading money, but it's money out of all of your pockets. So it's
and not going back to
and not going back to your pocket. It's just straight out and we're trading it from school to school and eventually landing in general funds. But does it help our district? Does the $3,000 difference help us? No. I mean, does it hurt taxpayers? Yes. So I was pretty hasty with the newspaper in terms of calling out the whole thing is really, you know, it's money out for property owners, and it's not helpful at all to school districts. It's a pain to keep track of.
So, yeah, agreed. And that's the big difference this year for tuition is we are now in the process of billing that. We'll bill last year's enrollment numbers this year. So that's how it'll be going forward. Retirement, we had a little hiccup last year in our reserves. We recovered that. So I built in a 3% increase. We had prelim 720. I think we can hit around 717 with a 3% increase, which is kind of what we saw inflationary wise. So, and we'll monitor and watch our reserves and make sure that that's all in line. But that one really doesn't hit the local taxpayers as much as it does countywide. That's a countywide permissive. So we still must have it available. Adult ed, last year's budget, 13,800. I just guessed around 15,000 this year with the increase in taxable valuation. When the numbers came back through with what was in our reserves, I decided we should budget 20,552.62. That's a change of 5,552 from our prelim. However, I'll show you how that plays out. Because we had reserves, it's less in tax dollars than we would have asked for last year. We're just basically going to make the full amount available for ourselves to utilize. So, flex fund, this one is filled in by the state. Last year it was 40,953. I had no idea. It automatically fills into our TFS at 36,693 this year. So that's what we're going to be working with there. The last one is one of the most interesting ones. Well, one of the two things left that I think is interesting to show. Building reserve was $180,000. I projected it at $107,000 this year. Basically, we were spending the building reserve money more faster than we were making it because of the interest payments that were coming out for the intercap loan, right? It wasn't going to last forever. We knew that. Then legislation came in. House Bill 515 increased the reserves from 10 mils to 20 mils. So that increased the amount that we could ask for. In doing so, they also increased the amount that comes out of the state major maintenance fund from the state, right? So your projected amount this year is $190,807. You had reserves of $54,000 roughly. Our permissive max, $136,350. So that's a lot more than what we had permissively in years past, basically double. By maximizing our permissive amount at about $36,500, we would maximize our state major maintenance portion of that from $55,000 last year up to $99,850 this year. So if you approve $190,000, which is a big change from what we had preliminary, but we didn't have the legislation in place. I'll just go down to here at the bottom, kind of show you. You would increase building reserve from $29,000 last, which is what you asked last year, to $36,500 this year. An increase of, I had it all here just for, there we go. An increase of $7,500 would increase your state amount by $41,000. So what last year you asked for $29,000 and got $58,000, this year you would ask for $36,000 and get an additional $41,000 or $99,850. So it increased that budget by quite a bit just in that in the restructuring of that House bill. You would be asking for an increase of less than 2 mils compared to last year. And that's to not leave the SMA numbers on the table. So and you're asking for far less than you can ask for because you're allowed to ask for up to 20 mils.
So where's the total mill?
So the total mill count is going to be back on these reports, and I'll kind of get to that here in a second. But I do want to go over transportation really quick because I want to show you how this one plays out really quick. So transportation up on the screen. Last year tax requirement roughly $420,000. This year, $370,000, and that's with a $30,000 increase to our budgeted amount, right? Let me see here. I got it. House Bill 405 basically doubled the on-schedule transportation payment from the state. So when you build that number in, even though we're asking for $30,000 more this year, our taxpayers will pay $50,000 less because of the on-schedule increase or change in House Bill rules and how they are calculating that. So in total, and I totally I moved this on accident. It's not $13. You're saving fiscally roughly $39,000 this year compared to last year and what you're asking your taxpayers to foot the bill on. Conversely, you're adding $256,000 to the general fund, another $41,000 to the building reserve in funding, and you're increasing your mills 7, so you're looking at 145 this year, 138 mills last year. But also part of that increase is going to be the taxable valuation change. With the decrease in your land values, you're going to see an increase in mills. So I would say you're probably looking at, you're looking overall at a decrease of $40,000 in what you're requiring the taxpayers to pay this year. And I can show you on my cool mill levies and taxable value trend. 227 mills total. Last year we were at 223. You saw a decrease up until this year, really. And then we saw an increase by 4 mills overall this year. So
It's gonna be hard to explain all that.
I mean, I just tried to. But that's the trend you see, right? Like you see the taxable valuations went up, your mills went down, they started to flatten out, and that's kind of hopefully what legislation is trying to do is end that big swing. So, but I think that when everything kind of settled in the spring, we as school members should have been happy with how things were represented for us.
250 in, cost 40,000 less, but an increase in mills on a different taxable.
But also possibly a decrease in tax payments as well, because we're seeing a difference on our tax bills before any of this is even in place. So,
That's all.
so I'll take questions, comments, suggestions. Even this isn't in place, but it does have to be approved by tomorrow. So if we don't do it today, we have this meeting again tomorrow, and we don't leave until it's done.
I mean, honestly, it sounds good. 250, like I said, 250 in, 40,000 less. Wider spread of the taxable.
Yeah, I believe by design.
Yeah, that's good.
I'll make the motion to approve the FY26 budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All's in favor? Any opposed?
Meeting adjourned 7:05.
Yes, sir.
Okay, take as long a break as you want, but we're ready for the next one. Yep, I'll give it to you. Okay, that'll be submitted tomorrow.